everybody. Welcome to Why We Love Horror, Incarnation 3, Episode 35. My name is John Maher. That's Aaron Brooks furthest away from me, Abby Brooks closest to me, and we have a guest this week for the first time. We're honored to have movie buff, knowledgeable, altogether person, Adelaide Spence below us. How's it going?
I feel like I just got that's like not like a setup, but I feel like I'm on a platform. I'm like the guy in the meme who's like shotgunning champagne and he got like stick to the Olympics.
Fair enough. I think for this week we are happy to build you up like that. I won't jump into what we're doing. Obviously, if you clicked on the thumbnail, you know what movie we're talking about. But normally I play the trailer first. This week we are going to be discussing I Saw the TV Glove.
I know this might sound crazy. I don't want to alarm you. Do you remember a TV show we used to watch together? It was called
The Pink Opaque?
Yeah. Do you watch? Each episode, they help each other fight a new monster from across the county. But it's way too scary for most kids.
If we're gonna defeat him this time, we're gonna need to harness the full potential of our shared powers.
Sometimes the Pink Opaque feels more real than real life.
Maddie, it was a TV show.
Are you sure that's all it was? I like girls, you know that, right?
Totally, that's fine.
What about you? Do you like girls?
I think that I like TV shows.
It's our destiny.
How can I have a destiny?
Something's wrong. This isn't how life is supposed to feel. Tell me you know it's true.
Maddie, it's just the suburbs.
Seems like you're always somewhere else lately.
Maddie disappeared without a trace. All they found was her TV set burning in the backyard. I told myself I made the right choice. What if I really was someone else? Very far away on the other side of a television screen.
Let's start with just the very, very obvious thing. Aaron, this is an A24 movie. Go.
Yeah. So, this is an A24 movie. And it's interesting because going into this year, first of all, if you're new to the channel, if this is your first review, I am a A24 stan. Like very much so when there's an A24 movie coming out, I'm watching it with open arms and I am excited. But like when I looked at my movies for anticipated for this year, I did like Jane's first, the director's first movie, We're All Going to the World's Fair, a lot. Like it was nearly perfect to me. I know for certain people it didn't work. So I was excited in that respect. But even watching the trailer, like I was like, this looks good. It looks like a kind of a coming of age sci-fi, like, is this a real world or not movie? And I should have known it was going to go way, way deeper than that. And I even heard like, you know, the pre-hype, but I was just like, okay, this is just kind of hype. Like how many movies have been called life-changing and things like that. And, you know, so I went in with like normal expectations for an A24 movie. So it's still high, but not super high here compared to like Maxine and a few other movies coming out this year. So once again, you'll learn through this episode. Like I love this movie quite a bit. And I'm looking forward to talking with y'all about this because like I love the movie and obviously it's the discussion behind the movie. I think that is going to be what has this lasting longer. And there's a lot of messiness with the story. And I just kind of look past all that and accept all those flaws. And I feel like they like serve a purpose. So like the stilted dialogue, all that. So I don't want to like jump all over the place. So I'll probably need you to direct it a little, but yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this movie with you three.
Abby, your opening thoughts.
So I was looking forward to this movie. I think my initial thoughts after seeing the movie was this is a movie that I respected more than I enjoyed watching. And I think I appreciate this director and what they were trying to do and the story they were trying to tell. There's just a lot of things that didn't necessarily work for me. And I think this movie for me is a lot better than their first movie because I really didn't like that one at all. So this is definitely a step up, definitely more resources, more to do with this movie, but we'll get more into it, but I was let down.
All right, and I won't jump in, but Adelaide, your thoughts?
Yeah, I will say I actually watched We're All Going to the World's Fairs pretty recently. A local indie theater showed it, and I was the only person there who hadn't seen it before. It was a little weird feeling to be like, "Oh, what's going on?" And we're like, "Yeah, this is fucking great." I'm like, "Wow, I am like so bored right now, and I don't know what to do." But I was still really hyped for this, and it's going to come into it in like my analysis of the movie. But I think having such a prominent, like relatively mainstream film from a trans director is always going to get me invested. And then hearing more about the reviews of like how it relays into the themes of it and how Jane Schoenbrunn is like a star, like they are the star of the movie relatively. I was ungodly excited. Aaron gave me the invite, and like if I fucking hate this, I'm gonna feel like such a bad person. And I just saw it 9 hours ago, and I got opinions.
I think I'm kind of in the same boat because I saw We're All Going to the World's Fair on Max, and like because I had heard the hype about it and how it was like a very unique kind of experimental movie, and I was like, this is it. But in the back of my mind, I was like, man, if Jane Schoenbrunn can get like a studio behind them and put some money into anything they're doing, they're gonna do something great. And lo and behold, look what happened.
A24. This is why we love them right here.
Yeah, the only downfall of the We're All Going to the World's Fair was just that it was just so like, I don't want to say vanilla, but it was like there was more that wanted to be done in that movie that just could not be done. But I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree, and I did extend the invite out to Adelaide for this episode, and it's more than that. This maybe directly speaks to their experience more than mine, but it is, I just think, really important for a movie like this, where it's not just that they have a direct relation to the experience of the director and what the story is being told. Me as a just a regular cis male, like I don't have those experiences, and I just wasn't expecting to learn so much about an experience I thought I had a good idea about already from an outside perspective. So it's just like an extremely like introspective, like raw experience that like once I tend to not read reviews or analysis before we speak, but with this it's kind of impossible with how personal people's reviews have been about it. And to just see so many different people who are similar or different than me having the same response to this kind of media. It's just that like that mass like experience of when something just touches such a personal spot and just everybody has a different take on it and how it affected them and everything. So it's just really just like it's why I love, I started liking A24 because of The Lobster by Yorgos Lanthimos, which now Yorgos Lanthimos, like a god. Everybody loves him. He's getting a 3-hour anthology about sex and all this shit coming out in a month. Like, and when I went to see The Lobster, I had no idea what it was. It was a day after the worst relationship ever in my life. And so that movie spoke to me. I had no idea. This felt very similar in a very different way, though. It took me so off guard by the end of it. Like, and so a crazy experience. So
I do want to go back because you point something out, which is like a big like thesis for me going into the film, is I think like my expectations were sort of related to Jordan Peele's Us, where a lot of the reviews I was seeing about this movie was talking about how strong the metaphor is. Nothing specific, just the metaphor. And I was going in with expectations of like Jordan Peele was going into Us with a lot of like reception of just like Get Out was just like a strong metaphorical piece and it works both literally and metaphorically. Us has to as well. He's like, no, that is not what I made this for. back the fuck off. Don't analyze it. Just enjoy it. And I was worried coming into this, like, is having a trans director, trans writer, everything behind the scenes, is that going to influence how people perceive the movie? Is there a perceived trans allegory that isn't there? Or is it, as a creative, is that always going to be part of their work as like a subtext of this is my like learned experiences? Is that just going to be inherent in the art that I produce? I don't think that's the case here, but it's something that I had to check myself a lot on thinking about the movie, is how much of that is like internal bias or perceived bias.
I think what I'll say, again, as like the default character of Earth. I am left-handed though, so don't come at me. But basically, yeah, I think you can enjoy this movie literally as well. I definitely, there's a whole metaphorical aspect to it, but like I went into it and I just I just literally watched it literally because I hadn't seen any of the analysis beforehand, but of course I've read all the articles since. But even as just like an exploration of like the role of nostalgia and just treating it as like an existential crisis movie, it's enjoyable that way too. But I am glad that there is subtext. But even if you're a person that doesn't even know it's there, I think you'll still enjoy this movie. So don't be frightened off just by these scary words we're using. Red America.
Yeah, and I agree, and like I won't harbor on this too much longer, but there are just a lot of different layers that you can take this movie at, and a lot of different ways you can take not living your ultimate truth also. With regards to, I don't have the trans experience, but at the same point, like the underlying story of it is like burying your true self, not living your true life, and the slow death that it causes you to have, and you literally choke yourself. And like that's literally what happens to Owen by the end of the movie. He's choking on himself. And like it's like we'll get into that whirlwind of the last 30 minutes of the movie, but like it's like was hard for me to like breathe. Like I felt like this is my first time realizing that that's kind of the point of, I think, those last 30 minutes, basically from where they show there's still time on the street. And like, it's just like, every time I see that, I get a giant frog in my throat. And it's just like that is like, it's hard to see that image and not think of what comes after that. But it's just, I mean, because if you take the movie literal, it's pessimistic. It's a horror movie. It's a psychological horror movie about a slow death of a person who's not admitting who they are and what they are. And then they are disappearing in front of everybody around them to the point where they're not even acknowledged when they're screaming in a room full of people. Like, and it's just like, so like, is this a horror movie? Yeah, this is like, honestly, pretty scary. And it is absolutely psychological horror. And to me, the types of things that really scare me at the end of the day is the idea of myself or people I love being so afraid to live who they are, whatever truth they are, that they bury it either in media, which a ton of us have done at plenty of times in our life, or they bury it in not acknowledging who they are and living that slow death. And it's just like really, really scary, but also like you flip the coin and like a really optimistic movie for the audience to view. Like can wake you up. There's still time. Like it really is just like a really important message for a lot of people, not just the direct audience that is supposed to get the message or whatever.
Yeah, so self-contained, pessimistic as a cautionary tale, optimistic, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I think even like, I think for a while, my friend reviewed it and like, it was like, end of his review was like, spoilers isn't a horror movie. And it was for like an hour. Like a really funky, interesting coming of age tale.
Yeah.
And then we get to the season 5 finale and we meet Mr. Melancholy. I wanted to die. That was fucking mortifying. How like in my head it was played by like the same actor as like the dad, and now to add subtext. It wasn't, but that's how I sort of perceived it. Of just this like not slobbering, but like this disgusting, raggedy, like sagging, sweaty old man personified as this moon, like basically drooling poison, saying how you are worthless, nothing matters, you cannot overpower or overcome me, you will die a slow and painful death that I caused because I don't want you here. And then just every word that he says, there's like a wetness to it. I don't know how else to describe. It's disgusting. It's horrifying. And then it becomes a horror movie. And I don't, weirdly enough on the show, I don't actively seek out a lot of like movies that fuck me up. It's hard to find that. I was not okay. That scene, for the rest of the movie, I was on edge and not doing good.
Mr. Melancholy is awesome from an iconic standpoint. And teenagers of the 1990s, if you enjoyed Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, so many references to that in this movie, which I have to imagine were intentional.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, I was glad to have also, John, you and I think can more directly relate to like the nostalgic angle of this with that 90s nostalgia more than Adelaide and Abby here are youngsters. But like, so it's just like, there's something here for everybody. And I can't believe this movie was PG-13 also. Like, I understand it was, since nothing is really shown, but this is like,
heavy.
This is about as adult as you're gonna ever get with thematics. Like, this is.
Well, I think this is the kind of movie that if you show it to a 13-year-old, it's life changing. Like, yes, even like I don't know if you've seen on Twitter people like, God, I wish I could go back to when music was great in the summer of 2014. Like, why are you on Twitter? You are 12. Shut the fuck up. I think a lot of people are seeking that, like, there is a nostalgic hook. People are seeking adult entertainment at a younger age. If a 13-year-old's like, oh, hey, I heard this new horror movie is out, super cool, and a lot of young folks are like hip with the trans peeps. So maybe they're like, yo, trans director, let's go. That changes you. That would, like how the Pink Opaque got into young Owen's mind and stuck there for however long. Same shit. This would like fundamentally change you as a person.
I don't even think change is the right word, because I feel like change makes it feel more like there's like an intent. It opens you up, like Owen is opened up like later in the movie. Like, it really does open you up to just, I just feel like whoever's viewing it, if this does speak to them in a way, like I'm just, I hope it reaches them, whoever that is. And I definitely had loved ones that I was watching this movie thinking directly about during it, after it. And, it's like, I hope they see this, and I really hope they get this one. Like, this is one where I'm like, I hope they're listening when the last 30 minutes are happening and what it actually means. And that they get, under all the scary pessimism of it, there's still time. Like, there's an underlying amount of optimism. And I get, we're not talking a lot about the plot, and we can try to talk through the plot, but honestly, like I said, the plot is messy at times, for sure. It's not like, and it's not as much, it's kind of the engine that keeps the movie going, but it's not like the important part. I feel like the messiness is supposed to kind of just represent life and things like that. It's not supposed to kind of be perfect. And, there's just so much in this movie to unpack. So I don't know where
the messiness is not even messiness, because if you buy the literal plot that's being fed to you, it's not reality. So it doesn't need to conform to reality. And not only is it reality, it becomes a reality within a reality within a reality by the time you're outside of the movie. So it should not make sense.
And it doesn't matter. Like, you go with it. It didn't matter.
And speaking of nostalgia, we didn't say the two most important words about this movie. It's Fred Durst in this movie.
Pretty good Fred Durst. Yeah.
He's fucking terrifying. Hate that. I will say, I think one of my favorite phrases that I like to use when I find really great art like this is universality through specificity, where I think this is about such a specific person and such a specific story that it feels like it can get very isolating, but it weirdly works for everybody. And I want to focus on the scene that Aaron mentioned, because I sit on it, it reveals more to me. I think it's never too late is what's written on the chalk. Of like, I think that's very powerful in the literal sense of like, he can still escape. From the director's perspective, that is a very positive and consistent message to trans people. Like, you just have to live to transition. You can always find yourself, everything there. But even beyond that, something that was like pre-release speculation, whatever, is the idea of like Owen potentially being asexual. And immediately it's like on the bleacher scene, it's like, do you like boys, girls? I like TV. And that's his bit. And the second after that, what does he do? He has a family. And it sort of feels like he abandons that part of himself and he loses the Pink Opaque. And it's just, everything is gone and he gives up, and that is the last sign. And to me, that's what's sad. But even then, that singular metaphor can work for so many different ideologies and perspectives. It's powerful and it hits and it hurts. And I think that's just incredible that it's able to accomplish that.
There's also just like it's I guess I'd say it's not literal, but it's like semi-literal, is that if you buy Maddie's speech as factual, Owen is Isabel. Yeah,
absolutely. 100% Owen's Isabel. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just representing, like, Isabel just represents how Cohen is trapped. It gets very on the nose with like the burying of themselves and all of that. And it's not meant to be hidden in that way either, which I think is another really, good line to kind of walk there, and it's hard to do so. And, I did think that the stilted dialogue for me isn't something that bothers me. That's going to be definitely a part of this that is a mileage varied type of thing. But for me, like, removing the emotion and having them speak so deliberately and everything, it was similar to like a Yorgos movie, some of the Yorgos' movies for one. And for me, it eliminated distraction and allowed me to really focus on these like really huge ideas that the director was taking us on with this movie. That if it was like these colorful characters, like, you get distracted by the dressing. Here, there's nothing to be distracted by. It's the words and the message that's coming at you at a very deliberate pace. And for some people, they'll like hear things like your heart's in the industrial fridge and they'll start laughing. I get like that line was kind of funny when they're like, our hearts are being held in an industrial refrigerator. Like, sometimes, like, yes, it's weird, but like for me, I thought it was like a really good choice by the director for how the dialogue.
Yeah, it's another like very literal thing. Like the way Justice Smith delivers the lines, they are deliberately very slow. Like there's a lot of like somebody will talk to the character. There'll be a gigantic, like a crazy pause. Mm-hmm. And then Justice Smith starts talking. And I think that's also just indicative of the fact that they're mired down, where they are.
Yeah, I get that point. That was one of the things that bothered me a lot in the movie, honestly. And I do also agree with everything that is being said about it too. I just found it really difficult to connect with the characters or just even care about them, honestly, just with the way they were speaking. And I think a lot of it, again, I know it was intentional, and that's kind of where the respect comes in, where it's like, okay, I know it's intentional. Like, I know this is what you're trying to do and the point you're trying to get across. I just found it a little bit difficult where in the end, where it should have hit a little bit harder, it was just a little bit difficult to get with these characters where they're just speaking, like, to me, they just weren't speaking like human. And again, I get that's the point. I just found it a little bit difficult to like get with it.
Well, I get it, because it's not like it's a very human movie, but also like a very distant movie. I think it's like almost intentionally hard to connect to them because their connections to everything else around them isn't human; it's fiction. And I think that's almost why it works, is because of the fact that we have to spend all that time connecting with these fictional characters themselves. And it's like, what about them hits us? Because if they're connecting to media, is our connection to media the same way that we can like cross that boundary even? But it's like, I don't think that Owen / Isabel isn't a full person until literally the last scene. And I sent Aaron like this whole Twitter thread about it, where it's like however you perceive it. After the panic attack, whatever it was, at the birthday party, literally cutting their chest open, and they open it, and it's TV. It's what they saw themselves as. The panic attack is gone. The hard breathing is gone. New person. They have been realized. They have been actualized. And it's weirdly optimistic, considering how dour and depressing and scary that last 30 minutes has been. But it ends on such an incredible note of just hope that I had no idea was coming.
Okay, that's a good look at it. Anything else we wanted to talk about before we get into our final words on it?
So is it Bridget Lundy?
Bridget Lundy Payne,
yeah. So that monologue that they have underneath with the horoscopes in the background and the astrology and the plant, whatever, that's definitely a make or break moment. If you're not in it fully at that speech, it's got to kind of be like, all right, yes, time does move fast and slow. Like, But I was like fully in it, hang on every word. that they had in this scene. I was a huge fan of this actress from a show on Netflix called Atypical, which is a really great show about a kid on the autism spectrum, and like way better than it should have been. And she's the older sister in that show, like plays like a very different character, but at the same point, that monologue is, I think, one of the best monologues of the 2020s.
I will say as well. So just Bridget Lundy Payne is also non-binary. And I think that also adds another layer to the film of as the character who is like invested in this is more of like the fully committed to the pink opaque, leaning into that trans allegory with like an openly trans actor and potentially trans character, like the big like 8-year time jump. If I had to leave somewhere, I had to cut my hair, I had to change my name, and it's like, what do you have to do to be accepted? And at a certain point, do you run out? Do you have to go back home? And your past catches up with you. And it's like, it is a layered metaphor. And I think casting an openly trans actor in that part makes it work a lot better.
Yeah. And that's something I didn't know till after the movie either.
Yeah.
So yeah, it adds authenticity to the words being said for sure.
I only knew because of Bill and Ted 3. I was like, wait, fucking Ted, trans kid? Hell yeah.
I'll drop these out. So let's just get into whether or not we think this is a good movie. And I think we all know what we're going to say, but hey.
This shit fucks. Like, it's so good. I think it's not my number one of the year, but I think it is so close. And it being like, you know how the 70s is like the era of the auteur? Yes. We're fucking back. Like, I don't know if it's A24 shooting heroin in the film industry or whatever, but it really feels like we have truly like artist-driven cinema. And the fact that this is a movie that is theoretically for nobody. It is so specific to one kind of fucking nerd who is absolutely me. And the fact that it's getting picked up for so many people, so many audiences, that there is an actual drive to like intake this, that's incredible. This is, for me, this is 4.5 stars. And I think that movies like this are going to like change and define the 2020s as a decade of cinema.
All right. I don't think I'm echoing anymore. That's good. I'll go next. I think on a rewatch this will go up because there's a lot of stuff that you miss going in. Like the name of the high school is Void High School. I don't know if anybody noticed that. That is the name of the high school. They are in a place called Void. And then as I think as Justice Smith is walking in the hallway, all of the stuff that he's passing are like these just crazy, like the darkest fortune cookie things you ever see on the walls. Mm-hmm. So I mean, right now I'm hovering at a 4. I guarantee that goes up. Like I could not rate it lower than this. The movie is like visually stunning. The one thing we didn't talk about, I'm sorry everybody. The soundtrack is easily like my favorite soundtrack.
And that goes Bridgers song. Oh my god.
It goes beyond this year. Even it's definitely my favorite soundtrack of 2024. And it could easily eclipse years on either side, depending on how badly people want to get my attention. But the soundtrack, I pulled out Shazam like 15 times during this movie. What the fuck is this? So yeah, go for the soundtrack alone. Whether you're not down with the concept, just don't watch the movie. Listen to the soundtrack, worth your money. Abby.
So I've been trying not to be like a downer for this episode. I obviously liked it least out of all of us. There are things I really liked though about the movie, and I enjoyed hearing like everybody's perspectives about why they loved it so much. Like I think that's why this movie is special. Like I'm not a hater. I'm not because I do think that this is an important movie and is making people feel a certain way and is speaking to a lot of people, and I think that's really special, and that's why I would like this director to continue making movies, even though I didn't like both of the ones that they made. Well, I don't want to say I didn't like it. Whatever. The things I liked all the colors. I liked the neon and all of the visual stuff that they did in this movie. That final season that they watched, I did like all of those weird monster things that showed up. Like even not just the Mr. Melancholy. Like there were other weird monsters that randomly appeared. I thought they looked really cool. And even though I didn't like the monotone delivery that the actors were supposed to do, I did think the performances were really good. Like they did what they were supposed to do. And again, I do like the overall message of the movie. Again, I'm glad that it really hit hard for people. So yeah, I gave it a 3 just because I think it is an important movie and there's enough good there.
Aaron?
I mean, this movie is already in my 100 favorite of all time. Like and it's probably in the upper 50, honestly. If any movie comes out this year that I love more, I feel really bad for Abby and everybody else who's in earshot of me, because like with this movie, like it's a 5 videotapes, obviously 5 out of 5. If I could rate it 10, I would. I just was not expecting what I got. And I like when the lights came on and I was crying. I had no idea why I was crying. Like I really did not know. And I wasn't just kind of crying. I was groveling, crying, lights coming on. No one else was crying around me type of thing. And I didn't, care. I just had to sit there for a couple minutes. Like, this movie is extremely powerful. I really look forward to watching it again. I really hope that the people who need this movie get this movie. And I do think that I don't like saying the word life-changing, but I think this is a life-changing movie for a lot of people. And I can't imagine how Jane feels as like a artist, because I think they nailed the intention here for it. And I can't wait to see what they do next.
Did you two watch it together?
Yes.
I like that, Abby. You were just like, "What the fuck was that?" Aaron's just in the corner. Like,
I mean, I was gripping her like pants at times, like I was taking off into space. Like I was like, I was like, oh, like the last 30 minutes are the most overwhelming I've had in a movie since The Lobster, which The Lobster, if people don't know, is my favorite movie of all time. So like that and Harold and Maude. So like my favorite movies are all like very emotionally impactful movies that like I feel change my perspective moving forward. And this feels like one that's going to continue to change my perspective moving forward. And I didn't think I even needed help with that. I was like, I understand that. Like, but Jane's like, here's cinema in mushroom and cinema form, and you're gonna take it and you're gonna enjoy it. So it's
the Hollywood trans agenda has gotten to Aaron.
I mean, good. You got me. Fox News. I'm everything you're staying up.
We did poison the water, but it's fine.
It got me. It's just it was an incredible movie. I can't wait to watch it again at home where I can sob in the privacy of my own home.
All right. Well, like we do every week, we also have another little feature. We are doing the Why We Love Horror Letterboxd Challenge. Let's check in with what we're doing this week. I will throw up the little thing. That's where you can go to join us. Like I say every week, that first horizontal line at the end there, that's a lowercase L, and the second one's a capital I. So don't type those in like it is. It's just the fonts they give us here on StreamYard suck, but that's a lowercase L and a capital I. This week, week 21, watch a movie that was from the UK. Just watch a movie from the UK. We're going through our English speaking portion of the year. And since we ended on Aaron, we'll start with Aaron. What English movie or British movie or Welsh or Scottish movie did you watch?
We went with Vincent Price this week. We went with The Abominable Dr. Phoebes. This was fun. It's very similar to Theater of Blood, if you've seen Theater of Blood, but instead of him being a critic, he's a doctor who's getting revenge on a bunch of other doctors who killed his wife after an accident. And he plays the organ, and he has all sorts of prosthetics, and there's all sorts of colors, and it's the 70s, so it's great. I don't know what took me so long to see this movie. It feels like it's like kind of like Phantom of the Paradise before Phantom of the Paradise in some ways. It's got that action to it.
That's high praise. That's high praise.
And I gave it 4.5 tapes, which I know we don't rate them here, but yeah, this was just like, how did I avoid this? I love 70s horror. Why did I avoid this weird, campy, like, and like I read behind the scenes, like Vincent Price was like laughing all the time on set, like he was trying to like he kept breaking character, and this like Vincent Price does not disappoint, or very rarely does, and it's just like each time I get one of it, I watched 2 of his movies this week, but this is a good time.
Fair enough. Abby, what did you watch?
So I watched a movie from 1992 called Ghost Watch, right? Ghost Watch.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had heard about this movie around the time that Late Night with the Devil came out because they are eerily similar. Well, very, very similar. Like they took a lot from this movie, I think. And I really enjoyed it. It's also I guess it was kind of like a Blair Witch situation too, where this was just an actual televised program that they put on the BBC on Halloween. And it scared a lot of people. And I would love to have seen it on TV at that time and just see how that worked and just how it was during the time. I really enjoyed it. I thought like it's definitely worth a watch. I mean, it's not. It is dated and it is very of the time, but I think it is like a good like spooky Halloween kind of watch. I think again for the time it was really clever. And yeah, definitely recommend it. It's on Shudder.
It's in the Letterboxd top 250 horror movies. Everybody says just in case you didn't know that Ghost Watch is in the top 250. That being said, I watched a more recent movie. I watched I think 2018's Possum, which I had heard a lot about, and watching like the Watch Mojo videos and everything, and all those What Culture videos. This comes up a lot. It's about like a disgraced puppeteer. You don't really know exactly what he did. I think it's better not to spoil it, but he has a puppet, and it's a baby doll head on a spider, and and you don't know if the puppet's alive or if it's fake or if he's just so traumatized that he thinks the puppet is alive. And it's also so he's in there. He's moving back in with his weird, creepy uncle, and kind of like you can kind of play out from the beginning of the movie exactly what's going to happen, but you don't really care because the way they get there is really interesting. So I would recommend Possum if you haven't seen it. If you probably haven't even heard of it, but watch Possum. It's a great movie. And Adelaide, what'd you watch?
I unknowingly also picked a Vincent Price movie. I wanted to pick a movie that none of you had seen before so I could add like a new piece of the conversation. So I watched Mask of the Red Death. I was a big Edgar Allan Poe fan growing up. I was like, let's commit. Let's see like how this goes. And it's like real boring. You can tell that it was like 5-10 pages stretched to an hour and a half. Love Roger Corman. Like this is my first movie of his. The production design is incredible. Costumes phenomenal. Price can never do anything wrong. It's just really uninteresting. I think they really try to stretch such a simple metaphor, and they're not smart enough as writers to really make it work. And it just feels so surface level or like uninteresting. It ends good and it starts okay, but God, I just wish there was something going on in the middle there. Like it's fine. I think that if you're a Price fan, he's worth it because it's like a relatively short runtime. But don't expect like the level of class that I was expecting going in because it's set dressing the movie. That's about it.
Yeah, I think that's been like an epidemic in horror throughout the entirety of horror. Like you adapt a under 10-page short story into like an hour-plus long movie. Like they've done it to Stephen King. I don't know, 20 times already. That poor bastard Stephen King just struggling. That's just if it's a short story, make it a short. Don't make it a 90-minute movie. Which I know we're giving you advice. You're not going to listen to us, but that's what you probably should do.
Roger can't hear you.
Yeah, Lawnmower Man should have been an hour and a half.
It's like, okay, I'll remember that. Thanks.
That being said, we've come to the end of our time here. I want to thank Adelaide Spence for coming on the show and talking to us and going way deeper than we normally do on the show. But maybe if the people love it, we're gonna keep doing it. I want to thank Aaron for having the idea of bringing Adelaide on. So that was good too. I want to thank Abby for sitting here and not cursing at us, even though she disagreed with us. And I'm John Maher. So if you made it this far in the video, like, comment, subscribe, and share. All my stuff is below. All our letterboxes you can find. You can go to my letterbox, you'll find their letterboxes. And the TikToks, Why We Love Horror. Remember, every Monday, you got Versus. Every Thursday, this show. And then come up at 9 p.m. and This Is Over. Live on every platform is Horror Headlines. And every Friday, we got Why We Love Horror Trivia. But we appreciate spending this time at the end. We'll see you next week.